campus, and we toured the middle school, the elementary school. Then he had lunch with a couple of our board members, and then he was able to visit some of our town leaders and some other things this afternoon. You had a pretty full afternoon. You only had just a few minutes at the hotel to get here on time, so we kept you busy. So
It's been wonderful.
But I want to welcome everyone here. Thank you for your interest in this, and thank you for being here. We're going to start tonight with a series of questions, okay? We're going to ask in round robin style, okay? And what we're going to do is we have some questions that are several parts. There may be 2 questions or 3 questions. We're going to ask those questions all at the same time. We'll give you plenty of time to address that. You have a copy of those questions before you. We sent out a copy to all of our candidates, so everybody will be on the level playing field, okay? So we look forward to hearing your answers, and we look forward also after this interview of meeting and greeting you and having some hors d'oeuvres and things afterwards, kind of a mini reception, so we look forward for you staying for that too. We're glad also to have your wife with us, Sherry, and she has enjoyed a lot of what Winfield has to offer downtown today. She especially, I think, likes the antique store. Did you bring a trailer with you?
I got one you borrowed. That's where we get home.
Okay. All right. We just wanted to make sure that we gave you a chance to see who we are. Okay. Now we want to have a chance to see who you are. Okay. So we'll start, and I'm going to ask the first question, and I'll finish up at the end also. Okay. So we're going to proceed down the road as we're seated. Okay. All right. Okay, Mr. Buckner. First question is: tell us about your background as an educator, and how your previous experiences have prepared you to be superintendent of Winfield City Schools.
First off, I want to thank each of you for your time and attention today. You've been a gracious host, warm and inviting. You have a wonderful town, a wonderful system here. I think you've got a lot to be proud of. This is a school system with a true tradition of excellence, and I've been very pleased with everything I've seen. It matches everything I've ever heard, and so this truly is a great place here. All right. As far as my preparation, I'm an educational lifer. I'm the son and the grandson of educators. All I know is school. It is the life. My wife can attest that all conversations revolve around what's going on at the schools, how the schools work, what makes the school work, what makes the school unsuccessful. The extracurricular activities is where we spend our dating life. You know, popcorn is a very cheap date, but that's what she got, and so it's life for me. It's a 24/7, 365. It is my passion because I think it is the most essential thing that we do as a society. It's one of the most vital things that we do as parents and as communities. And if we get school right, everything else will fall into place. Me personally, I'm a classroom teacher. I was a varsity basketball coach. I've served as an assistant principal, and I'm the current curriculum director for Jackson County, which has 5,300 students and 17 schools. So as far as preparation for superintendent, I'll just be real honest with you. I don't know that anybody is ever truly prepared to be the superintendent of a school or a system. That's something that evolves on a daily basis. It never stops. The learning never stops. You're never going to be truly prepared for everything that's going to come. You just have to ready yourself as best as possible. You know, just simple stuff of going through the analogies of safety and curriculum and financing. It's always changing. There's always innovations. There's always new things to be afraid of and diligent of. But certainly I've spent my life getting ready for this point. And so hopefully you find me acceptable as a person who can help you continue your tradition and help you move forward.
The second question is, what do you see
as the role of the superintendent as it relates to the employee group, the students, the community, and the school board?
The superintendent is the face and the voice of the school district. I mean, it is a single person that is to be the one that makes the calls, makes the decisions, make sure that policies are followed, make sure that the professional learning is going on, that best practices are being employed. Now, as far as for the employees, you know, you've got to be the example of professional learning. You've got to carry forward. We've all got to be lifelong learners. And so as a superintendent, you've got to model that. You've got to determine what needs to be done, the course of action that needs to happen, getting your people ready, getting your people focused for the activities at hand. You've got to provide leadership, encouragement. Sometimes you got to provide correction. I mean, no one wants to work in a situation where people are not doing their job and they're not held accountable for it. Everybody's got to be on task. Everybody's got to be working. You know, that's an essential element. For the nearly 1,300 students you have here, they want a safe, orderly educational experience that's going to prepare them for the future. And as we all know, yesterday's school doesn't work for today, and today's school may very well not work for tomorrow. So it's got to be evolving always. We've got to be moving forward. And so the practices and procedures that we're doing now with our kindergartners, they may be outdated by the time that they graduate. So we've got to be always churning forward. For the community, the community is an essential element. If I'm only concentrated with what happens inside these walls, I'm missing out on a vast thing. I mean, the students are only here 8 hours a day. Well, what about their other 16? You know, what are they doing? What are they prepared for? What is this community like? And you've got to be out in it. You've got to be involved. You've got to have partnerships. You know, there's got to be regular discussions with the mayor, the city council. You've got to have partnerships with the police and the fire departments. You know, the projects that are going on, the initiatives. You know, I just visited the theater downtown. You know, if that can create a partnership which gives our kids an avenue and exposes them to the outside world or the world to them, then that's a partnership that's worth having. So, and you've got to listen to your community. You know, what do they want? What do they need? What do they see as important? You know, what are the essential elements that will drive the education of the future? And most importantly, you've got to exhibit trust. They've got to have trust in you, and you've got to have trust in them, because they're giving you the best that they have. And so we've got to be good parents for the time that they're here. We've got to show them you can trust your children with us. You can trust their educational future with us. And so that's very important. As far as the relationship with the board, I see it as a partnership. It's one that's got to have regular, open, honest communication. It can't be the superintendent's office versus the board versus the superintendent's office. One segment of the staff going one way, and one segment of the staff going another. It's got to be lockstep. Now we may disagree on things, but as far as how we're going to present things and how we're going to move forward, it's going to be as a unified force, because that's what's essential. You can't move in opposite directions; you'll pull yourself apart. And that's just essential. So that communication's got to happen. You know, and your job as a board is to be aware and to support and to listen and to give the community another way into the system, not so that it's some dictatorship with your superintendent, but allow that communication to happen. And so I have to be open to that communication and exchange and be free with it. So that's how I view the relationship with the entities.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
What is the greatest professional disappointment, and what did you learn from that disappointment?
Oh, mercy. There's so very many. Life is a series of success and failures. I mean, literally, we learn to walk by falling down. And so, but for me, You know, I take it personal, each child that's under my care, each person that I'm in authority over, as far as their performance, their pursuit of success. And if they underperform, it ultimately falls back on me, because I did not provide them with the framework, the support they needed, the encouragement, the tools they needed to succeed. And so each time that someone underperforms or disappoints, it's a reflection on me. So what you learn from that is, you know, what mistake did I make? Did I not support them well enough? Was there not enough time invested? Was there not enough attention? Were we doing things in isolation? You know, there's some kids that you can motivate, and there's others you push them in the corner and they're going to bite back. Did I push them in the corner to make them bite back, and thus I caused their behavior? Those type things, and that's where the disappointment comes in, because I know my actions caused that reaction. You know, for me, this question, it just made one student pop up in my mind. It was a young man who'd been homeschooled, father had been in and out of prison, being raised by his grandmother. I know it's an all too frequent story now. When this young man came into our school as a fifth grader, he was brought in because the grandmother was unable to help anymore. And so the fifth grade work had gotten beyond her ability. And you know, we relished the opportunity, but we had a student who was way far behind, social, emotional, and intellectual. And so, I mean, it took us 9 weeks to get through one day without him taking his shoes off during the day. I mean, that was just the kind of person that we were dealing with. And the failure on this young man is when it came time to transition him to the high school, he wasn't ready. But I thought because of his age, you know, it'll benefit him to go. We can help him get to the tech school quicker. But what I should have done is protected him and shielded him, because once he got to the high school and got away from that structure, he did not succeed, and he didn't last long at the high school. And so for me, that was a life changer that I would have loved to have hit the reset button on and said, no, he's going to be mine. He's going to be my personal assistant. I'm going to help usher him to the next level, and just try to carry him through as long as I can. I know you can't hold each one of their hands, but I see where I failed in that and not helping him to that next step.
Describe your decision-making style and give us a few examples of strategies you have used in different situations.
I'm a mix of analytical and directed decision-making. I like to think about an issue, but sometimes you've got to make a decision. So if a decision needs to be made, I don't have any trouble with that. If I have time, it allows time, I want to think through the possibilities. Try to do the best scenario that you can, because you know sometimes maybe you don't have the experience, maybe you don't have all the information, so you need time to collect that through, and I'm willing to do that. I mean, I by no means pretend to have all the answers, because that's awful foolish and awful arrogant if you think you do. And so sometimes it's going to be phone a friend. Sometimes it's going to be investigate. Sometimes it's going to be to check through. Sometimes you're going to have to override your emotions in something and go, all right, I need to do what is truly best, not what my heart's saying, but the mind's saying. So you have to go through all that process. Now, for other decision making, let's say we're going to do something big. We're going to change our reading series, or we're going to look at a schedule change or something of that nature. That needs to be long, planned out, collaboratively done. There needs to be experts from diverse backgrounds and different experiences brought in so that we can troubleshoot it. We can find where are the holes in this. What are some alternatives? How are some different ways of thinking about this? Presenting a plan. All right, where are the gaps? What are we missing out on? Who are we not going to service here? You know, trial and error. Shoot it down. You know, put it to the test. But after that decision's made, then drive it forward and put everything you've got forward.
Superintendent has to have tremendous passion, belief, and commitment. How do you know when it's time to drive something forward and when it's time to listen and learn? And also, how do you balance the need for authentic collaboration with the requirements of individual leadership?
Yeah, and that ties back into the previous question, but balance is the key word. I think you have to have a balance. And for me, you know, this is something that's getting better with age. You know, earlier in my career, there would have been more dive right into it. Let's just go with what we know. But as I'm getting older and more experienced, there is more of a balance of, okay, let's get the facts together. Let's make sure that we're gathering information. You know, is this something that has truly been thought out, planned out? Are there other ways? Let's go see this in practice somewhere else. Let's bring folks in. Let's just shoot holes through it. And the biggest thing you got to do is make sure you listen. You know, when people bring criticism, are you listening? Because, you know, their opinion might not be the swaying vote, but sometimes their diverse look at it is something that you should pay attention to. And if you're hearing that, then maybe you can correct some mistakes before you trudge down the wrong path. But once that decision is made and once all that's been ironed out, then you drive it forward.
Describe how you would obtain support from the Board of Education for candidates you intend to recommend for employment. Please also discuss the most difficult personnel problem you have ever dealt with and how you resolve the issue.
Okay. I think people are a district's best asset. I mean, I met some outstanding individuals today that I know are the reason that this system is successful. And so the best way to improve any system is your people. And so, you know, first and foremost, we're going to hire the best people. And so what I feel as far as a relationship with the board, there needs to be that open, honest communication that's happening with the board so that you're understanding what I'm looking for and I'm understanding what you're looking for, and collaboratively we're going to know what kind of people that we want here. And so once that's happened, then, you know, we're going to follow all the policies and procedures. We're not going to willy-nilly something. We're not going to create a job for somebody. We're not going to not interview. We're going to do it the right way, because I think that is anybody that's hired without being hired the right way, that's a path to destruction. And so we're going to do it the right way. The third thing is once a decision's been made, then there's going to be clear communication on why that person's the best. There has to be that element. You know, once we make that decision, this is the best person. And the fourth thing is we're going to hire the best people. I think you're foolish to not ever hire the best people you can. As far as difficult personnel, that's an annual thing. Anytime that you've got to allow folks go because of funding issues or class size reduction, you know, and Winfield probably doesn't experience that, but in my current situation, we'll have great fluctuations at our 17 schools. And so going in and making those decisions on who you retain, who you let go, because you're talking about life-changing decisions that are happening. You have to take that very serious, and so it is very heartbreaking to do that. Recently, I took over the reading specialist, put them directly under me, because you get a limited number of funds from the state, and they were being used in a variety of ways out in our schools, and so I brought them all under me. But in doing so, I had to reduce the number of reading specialists we had, and so I had to go to seasoned, tenured folks and say, look, we're reassigning where you're going, we're reassigning what you're doing, and that's a difficult dilemma. You know, I can't imagine any person who's been here at Winfield being told you're not going to get to teach at Winfield anymore, you're going to have to teach somewhere else. And that was a difficult discussion, but it was the discussion that had to be made. It was decisions that were the best for those people. You know, but we were able to get ourselves financially in line, be responsible with what we were doing with our money and how we were doing it, allocating it the right way. But that was a difficult decision. And one other example that I hope never happens here, we had to close one of our schools, and so in the reassigning of all of those people, that was very traumatic to the community, to the alumni, to the students, and everybody involved. And so that was as hard of a situation as I've ever hoped to be in that didn't involve the death of a student. But it was a life changer, but one that needed to be done.
What is your plan for boosting and keeping morale among the employees high?
Oh gosh, if you can't get excited about Winfield, there's something wrong with you. So, for me, I think you've got to show that you're in touch with them, that you've got passion for the job, that you're listening, that you're attentive. You know, there's so much good stuff going on. I mean, it's not going to be hard to find a day to brag, to give a high five, to be able to walk the street and say, hey, you need to see what's going on in this classroom. You need to witness what's happening here. Let me tell you about this. Listen to all these kids that scored this on the test. You know, come to watch the play at the elementary school. There's so much good going on, but you've got to be the champion for them, and you know that's very important. You know, are you going to be out? Are you going to be visible? And I think it's essential. You know, my intention is to work harder and be better prepared. I want to know what's going on and be accessible, be available, and it is the way that you get things done. And so, just like with anything, if I'm paying attention to it, then they're going to pay attention to it. You know, we all like to have our name called out. We all like to be recognized, and so just by recognizing the great things that's going on, you're going to rise the level of all of them, because they're going to want to be a part of that. And I think being at extracurricular things, eating in the cafeteria, those are simple little things that just make a world of difference. You know, spending a few moments listening to a presentation or hearing a pitch from a teacher. I mean, teachers should have voice. Teachers should be able to say, I don't think this program's working, and I think this is a better way of doing this. Why wouldn't we listen to that? They're the experts. They're the ones in the classroom. So I think it's essential that you do that, and that's the way you boost morale. You bring morale down by closing that off, by not allowing that to happen. Yeah, you know, that's suppression in its worst form. And so that's going to bring things down. I mean, not to dwell on the negative, but anytime you have a change, there's always people who liked it better the way it was. And so one of the things that the next superintendent will have to do is show, this is who I am, this is what I am, this is what I stand for. And so that's an essential element too. But the primary thing that I can do to boost morale is just do my job. If I'm doing my job, I'm active, I'm the face, I'm building the community, I'm dealing with issues, I'm making sure people are doing their jobs, then it's going to go real well. People are going to want to show up to work because they know they're supported.
High performance by students and accountability are priorities for us. How much you assess the current student performance levels in our school system? How would you assess the effectiveness of our teachers and programs?
Well, you know, the data that I've seen is very impressive. Now, it's not at 100%, so there is room for improvement. But I would truly say that this is an A system, whatever measure you want to look at it. But there is room for improvement. And one thing with each day, yesterday doesn't count anymore. So we've always got to be building toward that. And so, but as far as how you assess something, you got to look at your data. You got to see what it says. What are we doing? How are we measuring it? And is it worth our time? You know, when you look at things from the system, to a school, to a grade, to a classroom, but most importantly to a student. Are we meeting the needs of each and every student that we have? Because if we're leaving a single one behind, we're not following our mandate. Our mandate is to educate all the students. And once we've got down to the student level, now bring it back out. What can we do? How can we best do it? And so that, in my opinion, is the best way to assess anything we do. You know, you've got to go in and observe and see what's going on. I can't make decisions for the school system and never leave my office. And I can't base it on the complaints that I receive. I've got to go see it. And when I see it, what do I do with it? And am I providing feedback when I go in? You know, what is happening here? Not just for my eyes, but so that we can make corrections. And it may be something as simple as, I need you to walk next door and see what she's doing. Or let's go visit this school over here. Or let you and I practice some of this stuff. Or let me come teach your class and model for you. But for the most part, it is support. And so that's got to happen. You know, I asked our guide today, you know, how true did she believe that the grades were? You know, if I receive an A in something, what does that mean? And she felt truly that it meant mastery of the subject, and that's what it should mean. And if we ever find where it doesn't, we've got to close that out. We've got to make sure there's some integrity in our grades, because if I send you a report card home that says your child is an A, but they're achieving at 60% level, then I have lied to you. I have misrepresented to you, and I have falsely prepared that kid for the future. But if that A means that there's 90% mastery, then we're good to go. And so you find those disconnects and you make sure you correct them. You know, is there increased levels, depth of knowledge as we go up? You know, are we giving the same test to 10th graders as we give to 3rd graders? If we are, we're not doing them a service. We've got to make sure that they're increasing the rigor and understanding as they go up. And there's got to be communication and collaboration that's going on there. You know, are these teachers truly preparing their kids for the next, or are they just turning the page in the textbook? Now, that can't happen. Beginning with the end in mind, knowing where they need to take them, what logical steps it needs to have. The framework that y'all have set up here with vertical and horizontal articulation, that's a wonderful setup. We need to make sure that that continues and grows. You're very welcome.
Expectations for student achievement for all children is high in Winfield, and eliminating the achievement gap is a moral commandment. What approaches would you pursue? What leadership and guidance would you provide to ensure that these approaches are properly evaluated and adjusted over time to meet changing student needs? Please describe any successes you have had in these areas.
Again, you've got to be the master of the data. You've got to know what's going on in the classroom. I need to know who the students are. I need to know who the teachers are. And so in bridging those gaps, where do they exist? Are boys doing better than girls in math and science? Why is that? Are free or reduced lunch kids poorly performing? Why is that? Is it because they don't have access to the internet at home? Are they missing available resources? Do we need to supplement? Do we need to provide safeguards? That's your moral imperative. Is every child here receiving an equitable education? And it could be something as simple as we have students in teacher A class and a teacher B class, and they're not being taught the same standards the same way. Now, we can't just allow it to be the luck of the draw. It's got to be somewhat similar, and so we've got to make sure that those gaps don't exist. And so, you know, you handle that through finding the gaps, and then what's our plan to solve it? You know, going through PST, having regular data meetings, and that's got to be led by me as a district, and then making sure it's handled at the school by school basis, are we identifying these students? Because with each child that we look at, we should be able to answer the question, what are we doing for that child? And so when we find these lower ends, and this is where we found success, is adopting students. The young man that I'm talking about, that's where you learn about, not bringing you into my house, but adopting that student, saying, I am responsible for it. And I think it's vital that each adult in the building is an advocate for the students that need this additional care. And so, it's plain and simple of, we've identified a weakness, here he is, there he is, there he is, there he is, there she is. Okay, now who's going to take responsibility for them? And it's amazing what happens when an adult takes responsibility for that child and says, okay, my job is to carry you forward. Now, they might not have ever had that conversation before with an adult that truly believed or supported them. Because again, we don't know. We're only dealing with them for a third of their time. So what can we do with that time? And along those same lines, you can do the same thing with community members. Who needs extra support? If I can put them with one of you as a successful person, and you're able to say, you know what, I struggled a little bit in the 7th grade, but I found when I did this, this, and this, I achieved success, then they can put a face to it and say, yes, that is success, and I know that I can get there because I know she's successful. And because she's successful, and she told me if I'll do these instead of you'll never make it, nobody from your family's ever graduated, that's all a waste of time, so on and so forth. It's a different message. And so that's a way of overcoming. So I think for me, personally, I've got to lead from the front, example, show what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. I've got to get into it in the middle and making sure it's happening. That level of accountability, when you show up at a data meeting, it's going to be a whole lot better because you're there. And that's got to happen. And also from the back, supporting and making sure that their needs are met. And so once those decisions are made, we're making sure that they're followed through.
Describe your experience in developing and implementing curriculum and instructional programs to raise student achievement. How would you evaluate the instructional program, and how would you make changes to the instructional program?
Okay. For me, the last 2 years have been a lot of fun. I'm dealing with a system that had success, but had gotten away from it, and so there was a need for it and a call for change. So we've done a lot of changes, and so I've got a few that I want to highlight. One was a dynamic learning project, and this is something that we've started small and we're expanding, and we're going to double again next year. The dynamic learning project is from Google, and what Google's doing is they're using technology to promote best practices. Because one thing that we know that teachers don't have more of is time. So if we can more efficiently help them make their preparations, make their adjustments, make their customization, allow for interactive feedback, those type of things, and it really just be better use of technology, why wouldn't it? And so, but that takes a good bit of professional learning. It takes peer coaching, and so what the DLP program does is it goes in and it coaches up teachers on best practices and ways to improve their use of technology. Not so that technology becomes the teacher. No, that's foolish, but just more efficient ways to be a teacher. And so we were one of 50 schools. Our district was one of 50 districts in the nation to be part of the DLP program. And so that's been an exciting transformation. It's wonderful to see the growth. I have a personal story. The school that was selected was Bridgeport Middle, which was where I was principal for a long time before I took the curriculum job. And I've got a teacher there that had 42 years. Computer was not something that she enjoyed at all. But with this dynamic learning project, She went from straight road teaching, handouts, to interactive discussions, to now kids are doing things on Flipgrid and responding back to her, and she loves it. But she has always been afraid of it. But with that one-on-one coaching that she received, it allowed her to carry forward. So many of our teachers have abundant amount of technology, but they really don't know how to use it. It's just kind of replaced a worksheet or a textbook, and that's not what you want. I mean, it is an amazing, amazing tool. It's just like Mr. Garner told me today, you know, in his pocket there's more technology than what carried Neil Armstrong to the moon. I mean, we have amazing technology at our disposal, and so the DLP is a wonderful, wonderful avenue for improving our use of technology. We were one of 8 schools to get approved for the P3 grant. Jenna Ross and I worked together on that. That's taking the preschool model of play-based learning and carrying it forward in the 2 schools that we've got. They're not only doing it in preschool, but kindergarten and 1st grade, and we intend on carrying that all the way up through the 3rd grade. And that is a wonderful way of experiential learning. It involves a lot of multi-sensory learning, conflict resolution, how to adapt and adjust, and really the kids at the end of the day, all they know is that they played, but they haven't. They've learned all day long, but they've not sat in rows and learned to be quiet and compliant. And so it is a wonderful, wonderful program, and that's something we've done. And the third one that I'll mention, I've got a whole list here, but I don't want to bore y'all. I think it's vital that principals go from facilities managers to instructional leaders. I think any principal that walks into the classroom, they need to know what's going on and how to improve when they see something wrong. And so many principals for so long, and I was trained that way. I was trained to be a facilities manager. And that is just such a disservice. You've got to be the instructional leader. You've got to go in and immerse yourself and know what good teaching looks like, when it's happening, why it's happening, how to correct it if it's not happening. You know, how do I observe a teacher if I don't know what's going on? You know, but yet our observation system is based that way, where we're supposed to come get some snapshot of what's going on and make a determination. That's foolish. You know, a principal should be on top of that, and any principal that's not, I hope they're phasing out, and because we've got to make sure that that's happening, and that's been one of our passions in my district is converting, and we're seeing some good results out of that. I mean, it's fun to be able to talk to principals about their data, about best practices, about what's going on, and them understand, yes, I do have time for this. One thing that we found through our educative effectiveness program, instead of, I'm going to come observe you in October, and then I'm going to come observe you again in March, it's, I'm going to come observe you on Monday, and I'm going to come observe you on Tuesday, and I'm going to observe you on Wednesday, and I'm going to observe you on Thursday, and then on Friday, you're going to tell me about what went well and what didn't go well. And then I'm going to turn around and encourage you and tell you some things that maybe we can do better or do different. Now, that is a much better process. It's just like the process that you guys went through today. If I would have just showed up at 3:30, you have a different picture of me than the one that showed up at 8 and been with you all day. You've got a better understanding. And that's something that we've got to get better as instructional leaders, as principals, making sure that we're making sure that long term, seeing the same kids, understanding why you do what you do, and that's vital. Eureka Math, I love that. We were successful to get a Google grant to get our AMSTI paid for fully, 5 through 8. That was a wonderful thing. You know, anything that we can do that brings a partnership of community in, and so that they help provide the expertise or the money or the material or anything that allows us to better do our job, that's something that I certainly work for with curriculum. So, I know that's a long answer, but that's kind of my wheelhouse, my passion here. So, as far as evaluating, you know, you look at something and you go, gosh, why is it working? You know, it's effective. You know, we see, you know, Winfield scored up here on ACT. Why? So we need to know why. Is it just genetics, or is there proper preparation that's gone into that? What are we doing? Are we prepping? Are we following the right course of classes? What's the proper order of classes? You know, how are they sequenced before the kids take the test? So on and so forth. But why? Be able to explain why. And if you can't explain why, then you just throw it to chance. But if we can explain why, now how do we replicate it? How do we carry this to another level? How do we make sure that we're doing this again? If we're doing something and there's no movement, it doesn't matter the bells and whistles that go on, all this is super and sensational, but we're flatlining or we're declining. Why is that happening? Are we putting it to fidelity? Do we understand what's going on here? Are the teachers truly trained? Is there something to this, or is this just something that looks good on paper and in the newsprint, or is this something worth keeping and basing our energy on? And so, you know, those type things happen too. And also, we've got declining numbers here. You know, what's happening? You know, do we need to reintroduce phonics to our younger kids because, you know, they have no idea what the words are, and so we can concentrate on comprehension all you want, but if they can't sound out the words when they come to one that they don't know, they just skip it. How are they ever going to comprehend something if they just skip it? But if I can break it down phonetically, then I can introduce, I can spell, my vocabulary is going to increase, my writing is going to increase, and so we know it works. And so maybe, you know, we reintroduce things like that. We've gone away from it in a lot of places. Let's get back to it. And so those are the top things you do. So your evaluation process, when does that stop? Never. Never. It's always formative. It's always rolling. And what works for one class may not work for the next. And so you got to adapt and adjust and keep it rolling. But the kids are going to keep coming. You know? And some, you know, if things go well, this community is going to grow. What are we going to do with those kids? And what kind of preparation do they have? You know, we know what our kids, pre-K, K through, we know what they know. But what about these kids that come in? Are we meeting their needs? Are we going to carry them forward? Because when it comes graduation day, they're either going to count for us or against us. So we better get them ready too. So, nonstop.
Describe your ability to cultivate a disciplined, safe, and orderly school environment.
Discipline, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Safety is number one. I mean, without safety, there's nothing happening. I mean, if I'm afraid in here, I'm not very successful. Nobody's successful, and we can't live in that environment. If we're not providing safety, we're not meeting the basic needs. And as a parent, again, you're dropping off your best and your brightest. You know, your grandchildren, that you want them to go into a school that you know is safe. The discipline component, the discipline is I mean, that's good and bad. I think Coach Saban describes discipline the best. You know, you've got one thing over here that says, am I willing to do what it takes to get this? Because I want it. But then you've got this other thing over here that I don't need. Am I willing to do what it takes to avoid it? You know, that's two components of discipline. And so we've got to model doing what it takes to get what we need, but also making sure we've got an environment where our children understand and know that it is worth it not to do the things to get to these things over here. You know, just something as simple. My daughters were exposed to a situation last night. We were sitting at the table and they were talking about a kid who had been expelled at their school and how tragic that was. Well, he had made a mistake that's going to have lifetime consequences for him. You know, he thought it was funny, but it's really not. And so, you know, we've got to make sure that our kids know this thing over here. We've got to have enough discipline to stay away from it. And so that's something that you ensure. So you define expectations, you model appropriate behavior, you make sure that proper discipline is rewarded, you make sure that people are held accountable, that everybody's responsible. I mean, if you got a teacher that's showing up late every day, how can you dare take attendance? I mean, obviously attendance doesn't matter if you allow that to happen. So you've got to make sure that you're holding people accountable. You know, if you've got principals that don't do their job, or custodians that don't clean the floor, or lunchroom ladies that you know that don't cook the meals right, or whatever, you know, there's got to be accountability there. So, you know, you've got to make sure that you're doing it. And I can't just assume that it's going to happen. You've got to be active and visible and vigilant. I mean, I don't want to be walking tall and carrying a stick down the hall, but at the same time, I mean, if I see wrong, there's got to be correction, and I've got to have enough intestinal fortitude to say this is how this is going to be, and so, you know. But of course, the easiest way to do that is to define that in advance. There's what the expectations are. This is how we want you to act. This is how we want you to behave, and don't just assume that you're going to get it, because you've got to model that, and that's how you create that environment.
What do you think the role of extracurricular activities and career pathways should be in the school system?
Very good question. I feel like in the schools that there's three pillars, and they're A's. You got academics, you got arts, you got athletics, and I think all three of them are vital for the long-term stability of a school. Because if you just rely on one without the other two, you're going to get off balance. And so those three allow good balance. For extracurriculars, I think they give more students a chance to shine, to thrive, to have an anchor, to have a reason. You know, I always like extracurriculars because, you know, our kids typically liked extracurriculars, and so that gave them a reason to be in school, because if they weren't in school, they didn't get to participate. It gave them a reason to do well in school, because if they didn't keep their grades up, they didn't get to participate. And also, I loved having a coach or a sponsor being an additional advocate for those students. It gives another set of eyes and ears that are making sure that each one of those kids are accountable and doing what they're supposed to do. And if you've hired your sponsors and coaches correctly, you've got a situation where you've got proper mentors and role models that are there. And if you don't have that, you've got to correct that situation, because you want to make sure these people that are working in these extracurricular fields are that. Now, as far as career pathways, oh my, I think that is the place. Obviously, we want all our children to graduate, but I think it is a moral imperative that all of our students graduate college and career ready, particularly career ready, 100%. If our students go through school without the ability to get a job or take the next step to a job, we failed. And so for career pathways, I think we need to do everything that we can to ready our students for a career. They've got to have soft skills. They've got to be able to look people in the eye, shake hands, make sure they can hold a conversation, understand the basic needs of reading, writing, and speaking. That's all important. One great thing about the STEM initiative that you have here, so much of STEM requires job preparation, working in teams, problem solving, innovation that comes from it. That is a powerful job readiness component. We just got to make sure that it goes from theory to practice. We've got to make sure that our kids walk out of school with a confidence and an assurity of, I have the skills to whatever. And if we don't do that, all we're doing is adding to the unemployment line. We are just creating a drain on society. None of our students should ever walk into the community college, University of Alabama, UNA, Bell State, wherever, and have to take a remedial class. They shouldn't have to do that. I mean, that's your moral imperative. I mean, that's a misrepresentation of what a diploma is. The diploma should be, you're ready. And so we've got to make sure that's happening. You know, because again, not all our kids will go to college, but all of our kids need to be able to go to work.
In Winfield City Schools, the superintendent handles the operation of a variety of programs and duties due to the size of the district. Explain your experiences with dealing with different programs, such as special education, federal programs, career tech, at-risk programs, and so forth. How would you approach the budget process to ensure success during these financially challenging times?
Goodness, what a question. You must have wrote that, Ms. Taylor. All right. So here's one of the beauties that I have. I have a wonderful work situation where I'm at. I've got a superintendent who has given us freedom, but also we as best as I've ever seen, work collectively on things. It's not departmentalized where, okay, that's yours, because we have a large district, both in miles and size. And so for us, we have to team on things. We've got to be functional, we've got to be literate, and we're all instructional leaders. I mean, fortunately, each one of us that are in our central office, we were instructional leaders, so we understand what factors go into special education, you know, the particularities of it. I mean, you mess up in special ed, not only is that a shame on you, but often it's money coming out of somebody's pocket. So you want to make sure that you're dead on with things like that. Federal programs is a wonderful way to finance initiatives, to make sure that your needs are met. I mean, it's a good equalizer when you're dealing with increased free and reduced lunch populations. It's a way for your district to balance out inequities and making sure that you're providing for the professional learning that you need, or the extra initiatives that you need. And so I've been very, very fluid with that. In my department curriculum, we have zero budget, so I have to be truly creative with everything that I do. And so a lot of it is begging for federal dollars for professional development, but also I've got to write grants and look for partnerships and things of that nature. So it's been very wonderful in preparation of that way, because it's almost lazy to have, oh, well, here's your big pot of money over here and you just dole it out how you see fit. If you don't have a pot of money over here but you still have needs, you figure it out. And so that's been the best preparation for anything, because if there's already money sitting there, that's easy. But I view it the other, and we'll talk more about finance in a minute. As far as career tech is vital. There's the communication that's got to happen there. They're in a different world. One thing about career tech teachers, it's easier to get them in. And so when you have people who have retired and want to join in, like some of y'all, I'm sure will want to retire what you're doing and come teach some finance classes or something of that nature, you know, that'd be great. And we can get you in easier as a career tech teacher than we can, oh yeah, you need to go take 3 years of methods classes. They don't have to do that. So that's a great way of bridging the gap and getting that experience in. At risk, gosh, that's vital. One thing that we've really done a great job in Jackson County is looking at risk from a mental health aspect. You know, so many of our kids, the problem that they have is social, emotional inabilities. They can't deal with adversity. They can't deal with the problems that are happening to them, and thus they react in adverse ways. And so we're dealing with it from a social worker aspect and also emotional counseling. And so that way, when we're seeing these repeat offenders, and we know, like we had a young lady that came to us last year to the discipline council. I mean, it was a third offense, so she was going to have to, because of the policy, she was going to have to spend extended time at the alternative school. But she was acting out because of a death of her mother. She didn't know how to emotionally process it and deal with it. So we took the opportunity of her being in the alternative school to provide her with counseling and provide her with support. And I met with her the other day, and she's so excited to get back in the classroom because, you know, you can just tell she's a different girl. And so now she's going to be successful. Bad stuff happens to all of us. Just, it's our ability to process it and deal with it and overcome it. And this little girl just hadn't had that. She was on the path to destruction. I mean, she was using drugs at school. I mean, she was going down the wrong path, but it was how she was dealing with it. And so at risk is that, as I've already stated, student disciplinary council. We did that so that we weren't having to take issues to the board so often. So we didn't want the board to have to be involved in, okay, we've got another kid behaving badly, come, because really it was a decision that should have been made at the district level, and so we just tried to keep it off the board. But the wonderful thing about being involved in that is, again, you're being involved in the restorative aspect. That's the discipline aspect. It's real easy to punish kids. That doesn't do any good. Discipline has a restorative aspect. So that's been a part, and that's something that I had to learn. You know, what is the difference between discipline and punishment? And you want to make sure that you're restoring the child, that you're giving them a chance. I mean, children, the beauty of working with kids is we can tolerate their mistakes a little bit. Adults, it's real hard to tolerate adults making mistakes. But kids, they need an opportunity to restore. Now, they still need to be the discipline aspect, but there has to be that restorative aspect. In my experience, I have to deal with transportation because we take kids back and forth. So if there's issues with transportation, also, you know, you don't want to limit yourself to the classroom. Like today, as I was at the elementary school, there was a group that was coming back from the coffee house. You know, there's a transportation communication that has to happen there. There's an understanding of, okay, we have to have folks that can get them there and back, and it just doesn't magically happen. So, you know, those type things. Maintenance. If there's a leak right in the middle of this classroom, I don't care how dynamic your teacher is, that's going to be disruptive. So let's make sure that we get that done. So you have to understand the building codes and who can and who can't, the liabilities and those type things. And so these are all things that I've been privy to. One of the funnest things to get to do is to deal with folks like her and have relations with the press. Because the press, they want to tell the story. And they want to have a good relationship. And so you have to do that. And that's one positive way to get out the great things that you're doing. You know, your morale question earlier, if people are regularly seeing good things that are happening every time they open the paper, which you're looking for stories all the time, I assume. You know, it's not just everything happening every day. And so if there's a good relationship there, and so one of my fun responsibilities has been PR. If you Google me, you'll see me on the news way too much, but I've had to, because you've got to get that message out. You've got to talk about your programs. You've got to talk about your initiatives. You've got to build that community, that collaboration. You've got to make sure that people know the good things that are going on. Because when stupid things happen, you're definitely going to put it in the paper. Yeah. And by my amateur math, it takes 9 good stories to counteract 1 bad one. So you've got to be active in that. So that's something I've done. As far as financing, I think I treat financing very, 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 very serious. Like I said, I've had 2 years of a zero budget, And so understanding the money is very important. Now, having an accountant's mind, I don't have that. That's why you hire accountants. But understanding that you spend less than you have is very important to me. I don't think anybody should look at it and go, oh, that's what's in there, so that's what we're spending. No. No. You've got to look at ways of spending less on what you need. If you want something, you raise money for it before. That's how you stay out of trouble. And so as far as the budgetary process, you go line by line. You look at every department, every unit, every funding source, every way. You know, just something as simple as updating our cell phone plan saved our system $60,000. Well, that's 2 instructional aides. But if nobody's looking at it, so you don't take that budget and go, okay, let's go. It's got to be processed. It's got to be important, because that's how you establish trust. If I'm going to be trustworthy with your money, then you're more likely to give me money to allow me to do the things that I need to do. And so I think next to safety, financing is right there as priority. And so, again, you look to maximize your share, your multi-use. You know, we talked about the facilities that you have and things that you need, and that type of stuff. I mean, that's essential. What's the most usage we can get out of this? That's vital. That's smart thinking. So.
When a new superintendent is hired, you want to make the transition as smooth as possible for everyone. How would you help both the educational community and the community at large adjust to the new governing style that would come with a new superintendent?
Okay. You got to build trust. You got to show that you're invested. You got to immerse yourself. You know, I truly think that any building takes on the personality of the principal, and every school district takes on the personality of their superintendent. You got to show who you are, what you are. You know, it's got to be open, accessible. I'm just a person that's passionate. I'm going to try my best to make you feel important, to make you feel like you're a contributor, and then I also want to make sure that you don't go away going, gosh, he's an arrogant rascal, or he's somebody that I can't deal with. He won't listen. He's uncooperative. Those type of things. That's foolish. That closes doors. And so we've got to make sure that this is happening. We've got to make sure that there's voice. I think it's very important that the community have a voice. I think it's very important that teachers have a voice, that students are allowed to speak on behalf of themselves, that parents are able to ask questions and get resolution of what's happening. And sometimes it's just allowing the conversation to happen. And so that's things that allow for this transition to happen smoothly. Now, when you have a unity situation or maybe divided camps, you know, you've got to make it to where, okay, here is our goal. Here's the path that we're going down. And you've got to define that path. This is when we're doing it, this is how we're doing it, this is how long we're doing it, so that it's all clarified. And you got to know your people going down the path. Who are they, and what are their strengths, and what are their roles? And you've got to allow them to have a voice, and that's hard. It's hard. But that's an essential component. And I've found that a very essential element of creating unity among a group is you've got to have some connectivity outside of work. They've got to be at ease. And so one thing that you can do that very easily helps is just an activity away from work or outside the work hours that allows for that openness and exchange, and just, hey, we're all level, we're all easy. For me, it's taking the coat and tie off and being a servant, maybe grilling some burgers or some hot dogs or something, and just being accessible, being part of it. And so those are easier said than done, but that's what you have to do to have that transition.
What methods of communicating with parents have you found most effective, and how would you encourage parental involvement? And how do you plan to communicate with the public on matters of school concern?
Yeah, communication I think is a vital component, and for me, if I've got a message that needs to be conveyed, either to a board member, to an employee, to a member of the community, the best is direct. I think you approach it with a handshake and an eye to eye, and you meet it where it is. And so much can be avoided and dealt with if that communication happens. You can't shy away from it. You can't be afraid of it. Now, sometimes it's going to make you sick at your stomach to have to do it, but it's much better than laying there awake at night of the fear of the consequences of you not doing it. And so direct communication happens, and the most important part of communication is the listening component. You know, so many things that I have found that if I give a person a chance to talk, that solves the problem. First off, I can't understand what their issue is, why they are not supportive or why they're against something without truly understanding what their point of view is on it. And so I've got to be an active listener. I've got to speak directly to them, and I've got to be respectful. You know, I told any parent that ever wanted to come see me, we will talk forever. We're not going to yell. We're not going to threaten. We're not going to. We can talk. And when you have that standard, most things are dealt with. And so that's the best form of communication. Obviously, you know, for the parental involvement part of it, I think parents must feel that they have access and have a role. There needs to be a reason for them to be there, that they are welcomed and wanted, and not just at fundraisers, not just at, hey, we need you here for cleanup day, but we want you to be involved. And so when that happens, I mean, obviously there's limitations to that. You don't want a parent there that's going to be detrimental or self-serving and something of that nature, but to create that, and that parental involvement, it's vital. But on the other side of it, you don't want to create events where that you're requiring people to be there when they really don't have to be there. I mean, all of us have busy lives and things that are going on. And so when you call a parent meeting or you require them to come in, make it worth their time. And if it's not going to be worth their time, don't do it. Because that's the boy crying wolf. Because when you really need them there, they're not going to want to be there. I don't want to inundate them with robocalls. I mean, good gosh, who wants to hear all that? I mean, you know, our phones blow up enough as it is, and I'm sitting here going, yes, and 6 weeks from now we're going to have a PTO meeting. I just want to make sure you had it down on your calendars. Nobody wants to hear that. So you've got to be cognizant and aware of that too, so you can over-communicate. But as far as what is the methods of communication, I think in today's world, it's got to be all forms of communication. You've got to be emails, text messages, all calls, Facebook posts, Twitter posts. You got to update your web page. The information has got to be there. It is essential because in today's world, we expect it to be there. We expect it to be right. Now, you know, I hope that nobody expects that at 10:30 at night that I'm supposed to answer a what are we having for lunch tomorrow question. But at the same time, you've got to be open and available for communication. So it is a modern phenomenon that's different from anything we've ever done before. But communication is definitely something that you've got to be accessible, and it's got to be two ways.
Based on the fact that the new superintendent will start in the middle of the year, what are the first few things that you are going to do if you are hired as superintendent And what do you view as our system's greatest potential for improvement?
I think it's essential that whoever is hired in this job is open to and allows for open communication with the five of you. In my time spent with you, I see a very knowledgeable, very concerned, very informed group. And so that's got to happen in a pull the curtain back, let's see where our strengths are, let's see where our weaknesses are. And the same thing's got to happen with the central office staff and the principals. That communication has got to happen where we're understanding, okay, what are the goods, what are the not so goods, and what's paramount that gets changed today. And you know, you can't, well, you can, but if you just come in just guns a-blazing, let's change this, let's change that, that's a complete disrespect for all the great things that have happened here. But at the same time, there's some things in any organization that need to be changed. There's some things that can be improved upon. There's efficiencies, and there's ways, different ways of looking at things, and any manner of things. But that's got to come through the discussion. I don't know what needs to be fixed here. I mean, I've spent the better part of 2 weeks doing what research I can. My wife and I came down and visited your town, but you know, what are you going to see in a day? And today has been a wonderful exchange, but what am I going to see in a day? And so I need to be slow and deliberate and observe, build rapport, meet people, understand the lay of the land. Who's related to who? Why are these decisions being made? Why is it that this is unpopular, but this is popular? You know, that exists in every community, in every school system. And so you've got to be willing to do that. Meet as many people as possible. You never know when that random lady on the street is somebody that you're going to meet again. You know? And that's important. It's important that you do that. You know, you got to create bonds and partnerships. You got to show people who you are, and I think it's very important that you build that rapport, because you know, people really don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I mean, I'm just some schmo in a coat and tie, until you show them, okay, he gets it, and he gets it for us, and you know that takes a little bit of time. As far as your district, oh my, the sky is the limit here. I mean, this is truly one of the places that you can say, you know what, we're going to have 100% graduation rate, 100% college and career ready, 100% of our kids are going to benchmark on the work keys or the ACT. You can do that here. Can you imagine how ridiculous that would be at most of the other systems in the state that are struggling with 50% graduation rates and kids scoring an average of 14 on the ACT? And you are richly blessed here. So the sky is the limit. But I can say this, there is room for improvement. And there are avenues that you can get better at. And so that's the fun part. Because your starting point is so far ahead of most other people. So, you know, this is a cool place. You know, it's hard to find the amount of community investment and community involvement. It's hard to find the financial wherewithal and the means to do the things that need to be done. I mean, I've commented to each of you, the fact that you're teaching music at all levels, that is important. That is not funded by the state. And if anybody grown up outside of Winfield, they know, but I hope your people understand just how awesome that is. That is something that y'all have scratched for, saved for, fought for, and protected. That's important. Because so many of our students, that's a way to improve. You know, this is truly a dynamic system with a tradition of excellence. And tradition is one of those things that we've been there and done that. We have seen success. And of is the mathematical term that means times, multiplied. Tradition, been there, done that, times, excellence. We expect excellence. There is a level of achievement here that is envied by everyone else. But you know what? What they did in the 50s on the football field, the basketball court, that doesn't count today. The fact that the cheerleaders won a national championship last year, that doesn't help them score 1 point in the next competition. Now, it's nice because you can go, hey, here's the possibilities. But you still got to do it today. So if we expect more, be more every day. And so that's what I see as the future for you guys. Okay.
We're down to our final question, Mr. Buckner. Do you have any questions for the board members?
Absolutely. When do I start?
Give us any of those 4-part questions.
That's the questions I should ask now. I appreciate, again, this has been a wonderful experience. You guys have a lot to be proud of. I hope well, I know that you know, but you know, to me, the power of this district is the community involvement, and it's embodied on this board. So often the board is set up to where they're settling scores, or they're pushing their personal agenda or their personal initiative. It's so refreshing to be in front of a board that is about the community, and the community is the school. And the school will feed the community, and it will go again and again. I heard each of you talk about what I received from my education, and the ability to give back is essential. That's the way I personally feel. You have been singing and preaching to the choir today when you talk things like that. You know, for me, it is a joy to be able to give back to other kids the way I was given back to. You know, my 3rd grade teacher, when my parents got divorced, she invested the time in me. She helped me through that transition that I didn't even understand. But because she stepped in the gap and helped me through, you know, I could have very easily been bitter. I could have very easily strayed, but she didn't. And I didn't know that as a 3rd grade student. I didn't realize the extra time that she was giving me and making sure that I was supported. But it was a godsend. And I think each of us are able to give that back. And you're able to give it back through the board. People like me are able to give it back through leadership roles, and our teachers and staff are able to give it back through our personal service. So I commend you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Buckner. Thank you very much. We very much enjoyed your visit today. We hope that we were able to put our best foot forward. We hope we were able to show you a little window of what we're all about here. We hope we were able to show you what a professional staff that we have at Winfield, and that our teachers are our asset here, okay? And we do have wonderful community support. We're very fortunate here. We know that we're fortunate. For those of us who've worked away from here, who've been involved and seen other school systems, we realize that we are special. We also have teachers that's worked in other areas, other districts, and they've come here and they want to be here. And we think that that is an asset. We need a leader who is going to bridge gaps, develop unity among everyone, all our stakeholders, who will be the face of this school, who will get out in front of everything and be our biggest cheerleader, okay? So I think you've done an excellent job today in letting us have a little window into what you're all about. So we really thank you for your wife and your wife Sherry and being here. I think she's enjoyed the downtown part of Winfield today. And I think when you look at Winfield, you're looking at several aspects. You're looking at the community, you're looking at the school, and you're looking at the future of our children and what we want for our children. So thank you very much for being here. We're going to have a little reception. After this, we would like and encourage anyone that wants to stay and ask questions from Mr. Buckner to do so. Go ahead and eat with us. We've got enough food for hopefully everyone, so stick around a little bit. This concludes our interview.
Thank you.